and welcome to this week's edition of Smart Money. I'm Surabhi Upadhyay. ROE, ROCE, PB, PE. If you're already scandalized, we don't blame you, because if you're new to the world of investing, then some of these acronyms, these words, these ratios, they can, leave you a bit overwhelmed. A lot of you have been asking us questions, and you've been asking us to make it all simple, which is why we thought we will do exactly that. Look at the questions that have been coming in, and they really got us thinking. For instance, Amar asked us, what is the sequence in which the ratios must be analyzed? So pertinent, right? Is it ROS first, or ROE first, or ROA first? Then we had Parag asking us, which is the first financial ratio to look at while you're studying a balance sheet, or even if you're looking at a P&L statement, and how do you evaluate really? Which is why we thought we will get Gurmeet Chadha back on popular demand and do a part 2 really of our Smart Money. Last week he taught us how to look at balance sheets and how to look at cash flow statements. So Gurmeet, I hope you're ready, because our viewers are, and it's going to be a rapid fire. We have a lot of ground to cover today, right? In fact, let me throw it open. One of our viewers is joining us live right now with the question, and I think his question really sums up why we need to do this show. So let's listen to him.
My question to Gurmeet sir is, as an absolute beginner in the stock market, which are the 3 to 4 financial ratios should one understand or look into, which form the very basic foundation based on which a stock or a company can be analyzed? Thank you.
Okay, all right. So there you go. Gurmeet, it tells us, right, that it can get a little overwhelming, especially if you just open your DMAT account, if you are a DIY investor, you're trying to be on your own. I know you've picked out 7 ratios for us to keep this simple. Now, why these 7? What makes them special? And what would you say to our viewers to begin with?
Hi, Surabhi. I think a perfect query to start with. I think broadly, it's important to analyze the fundamentals of the company, and financial ratios do speak a lot about the company. So let me start by saying that, nothing is absolute. So these are not absolute ratios. These are relative and would vary. They are not the only criteria, but they are an important criteria. So it's the starting point when you analyze the company. So broadly, we divide it into 3 parts. One is the profitability and return ratios. The second is the solvency and liquidity ratios, which tells you whether the company is strong enough to withstand any stress. And third are the valuation ratios. If the company is profitable, has good financial strength, whether it's good to buy. So on financial ratios, the beginning point, while there's no particular sequence, but the starting point is ROE, which we keep hearing, which is return on equity. Simply put, return on equity is PAT divided by your shareholder equity. We learned what shareholder equity was last time, right? So it basically tells you that, how much for every 1 rupee of shareholder equity the company is generating. So since we picked up Asian Paints ROE for last year was 27%, which tells you that for every 1 rupee of equity capital shareholder puts in, you get 27 bucks.
Okay, go.
So that tells you, it's a profitable business.
I'm going to hold you, Gurmeet. I'm going to have to hold you back a little bit, because this became a bit of a super speed express train, right? We have to slow down a little bit. Let's go over the definition once more, the calculation formula for ROE, and then tell us. Yes, you're very right. You mentioned shareholder equity, and last time we did look at the balance sheet, and it's mentioned right there. So tell us what ROE will really denote.
Yeah. So as I told you, it's your profit after tax divided by shareholder equity. So if you see Asian Paints balance sheet, last time we saw the PAT was about something like 270 to 80 crores. The shareholder equity was around 10,000 crores. You divide that, you get 27%, which denotes that every 1 rupee of capital shareholder puts in, he get 27 rupees back, as earning. That's how profitable Asian Paints has been. And this is an important filter, Zubi, because in long run, if you see, ROE will mirror the share price returns for well-run companies. So Asian Paints for last 10 years, the ROEs are 25, 24%. And if you see the last 10-year returns of Asian Paints, it will be around 23, 24%.
Okay, got that. And for viewers, just a quick note over there. Shareholders' equity, you saw that in the equation. Where do you find it? Basically, you just go to the balance sheet, and either you can just subtract the liabilities from the assets, or you'll find it on the line actually. So in this particular example, this is the Asian Paints balance sheet. The line itself is mentioned very, very clearly. The equity, the highlighted big bold part, that's the shareholders' equity. And the value in Asian Paints case is 10,533 crores rounded off. So it's not rocket science, really. You can open the balance sheet and you'll find it over there. Let's move to the next ratio, which is ROCE. And Gurmeet, now this is a ratio which I hear a lot of market experts talk about as well. They all talk about make sure you invest in high ROCE generating companies. So explain more to us.
Yeah. So ROCE is typically used because, for companies which are into capital intensive and long gestation, nature. So, your telecom, power, utilities, oil and gas, because it gives you a return on overall capital, which includes debt as well. So ROE gives you the return for the shareholder equity. ROCE, as the word suggests, gives you the return on overall capital employed. So it's EBIT, which is your operating profit, which is you can find in the P&L, divided by your shareholder equity plus debt, the long-term debt. So if you take up Asian Paints, for example, again going back to the previous example, the operating profits, you'll be able to see on the balance sheet very clearly. It's something like 480 or something, and if you divide it by shareholder equity plus long-term debt, you will get something like 36%. So also it gives you an idea that how good not only the profitability, but how good you are making use of all available capital, including debt. So a higher ratio tells you that you are using good, you're putting debt to good work. Okay. But at the same time, let me also tell you, Surbhi, that there should not be very high divergence between ROE and ROC, because what can happen, then basically what you're saying is that your debt investors are better off, right, than equity investors. So as Warren Buffett puts it, the right ROE,
Gurmeet, one second. Since you are talking about both, we have a question exactly on this because it can get a little confusing. Now in ROE, we were dealing just with equity, but in ROCE, we are dealing with debt plus equity. Let's move to Aditya's query actually on that note, because he's asking exactly that. Aditya is saying, which is a better financial indicator for the equity investor? Should one look at ROE or ROCE? And which ratio to give a higher weightage? A very important and a very pertinent question, Gurmeet.
Yeah. So both should be looked together, Surbhi. As I said, if both ROE and ROCE are going up, that's a very healthy sign. You are making good use of all available capital. A healthy ROC also means that your return on capital is more than the cost of borrowing because it includes debt. And as Warren Buffett says that the ideal ROE and ROC should be 20% plus, and there shouldn't be much divergence between the two, because then that it signals that you are better off being a debt investor if ROCE is more than ROE. Also, ROCE is also used by lenders to figure out whether to lend to the company or not, because if your ROCE is high, which means you are comfortably making more than the cost of borrowing.
Okay, so very quickly, we've done ROE, ROCE. We're moving to the third profitability ratio, which is ROA, return on assets. Gurmeet, over to you.
Yeah. So ROA, as the word suggests, it's your profit after tax which is available divided by the total assets of the company. It's not only taking just shareholder equity and some debt, it's taking all assets. To give you a very layman language, every $1 I put in every plant, machinery, cash, equity, how much return does it generate?
Okay.
ROA is more relevant for, again, as I said, banks and financials. Because in banks and financials you take most assets of the bank at a fair market value on the balance sheet. To give you an example, HDFC Bank, the ROA is about 1.7, 1.8, which is amongst the best. And let's say a bank which is struggling right now, like say Yes Bank, the ROA is about 0.4, 0.5%. So higher the ROA, the better, and it's mostly used for financials. This ratio, other than the ROE and ROC.
Got it. So mostly if you're looking at financial companies or banks, you look at ROA. Now that brings me to the next set of ratios. We've done profitability, folks. Now we're moving to leverage ratios, ratios that help us understand the indebtedness of the company. And here let's start with the debt equity ratio, the most common one, Gurmeet. Now, again, what is its relevance and how do you judge it? I mean, is a heavily indebted company always a very bad investment?
See, in a lot of cases will be yes. So as the first coming to the ratio, it's total debt by equity, right? So typically lesser than 1, and lower the better. Since we took Asian Paints as an example, if you see Asian Paints, the ratio is like 0.03, 0.04. So it's simply you divide the overall equity, shareholder equity, and divided it by the the over external obligations Asian Paints has, which was too little. We saw that last time, right? It's a red mark. If you see a lot of companies which are struggling, because it tells you whether the company is solvent, whether it will be able to service all its financial obligations or not. So look at some examples in the past, which we have had issues like GMR Infra, Kesoram, Adani Green. You had HCC, Hindustan Construction Company. The debt equity ratio was 10, but debt equity ratio should be looked in tandem with the return ratios. So if you are using debt for working capital, it's a problem. You are borrowing just to pay, and meet your short term, running on a daily basis. But if you are borrowing for expansion, and the nature of the business is that, you need to do capex, then for temporary period, if the debt equity ratio goes up, it's not really a red flag.
Okay, but it's something you definitely need to keep in mind and watch out for. Which brings us to the next ratio. This is the 5th ratio for our show today. Again, it's a leverage ratio that we're talking about. Tells us about the extent of leverage or indebtedness for a company, and this is the current ratio. Now, Gurmeet, I remember this one because again, last week we were discussing the Asian Paints balance sheet, and you told us it's all the current liabilities and the current assets. Is that how we arrive at this ratio?
Yes, so it's current assets by current liability, Surbhi. So it's also called working capital ratio. How it measures how company can pay its short-term obligations. More than 1 is typically refers as a high is recommended. So if you see Asian Paints, we discussed it was 1.7. It improved over 1.4, 1.5 over last year, which tells you that they are comfortable. Also, a very high current ratio may not be very good. It might just signal that your receivables or your inventories are overvalued. We saw that with Z. Its current ratio last year touched 4, right? So that's a flag that probably your inventory or receivables has some kind of issue. Also, if you recollect in 90s, Surbhi, Arvind Mills had current ratio at 6. They were doing this denim expansion, and when the Southeast Asian nations started producing low-cost denim, it almost was on the verge of bankruptcy before that spectacular turnaround in 98, 99. So a very high current ratio is also you need to go do a bit of a deep dive to understand why the ratio is so high.
Okay, but typically for a reasonably healthy company, what's the range in which the current ratio should be, which tells us about the short-term liquidity mismatch, if any, in a company? So what's a respectable healthy range, Gurmeet?
Yes. So as I said, so anything above 1, in that range, 1 to 2 is a good ratio. Asian Paints is like 1.7. Most good companies will have between 1.5 to 2, the current ratio.
Okay. Got that. Well, on that note, we are going to take a very quick break. So we've done the profitability ratios, we've done the leverage ratios. Now it's time to look at how to pick the stock. We'll apply the price to it, and that will bring us to price to earnings and price to book. The conversation continues on Smart Money. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're with us on Smart Money, and this time it's the masterclass on important financial ratios. We've told you about the profitability ratios, the leverage ratios. Now we come to the all-important valuation ratios. How do you decide if a stock is cheap or expensive? So we start off with the price to earnings ratio, the most common one that you would have heard of. Now, since we're going to talk about PE, there's a query that's coming in on the PE ratio, and this query is from Prakash Singh. So what does Prakash want to know? He is asking, what is the relevance of price to earnings with cheap money available all around? Very, very interesting question, Gurmeet, one would have to say, right? Because you keep hearing so much of debate in the market that, it's growth at any price and PE doesn't matter, and look at consumer companies. That's sort of a more academic level. Let's start with the basics. What is the PE ratio first?
Yeah, excellent question, I think. So starting with what a PE ratio, as the name suggests, it's the current market price divided by earning per share. So for example, in Asian Paints example, the EPS as on March, if you take that number and you divide it by the price of Asian Paints, which let's say today's price is 2050, you divide it by the EPS, which is about, let's say, 26, 27 bucks, you'll get about an 80, 85 PE for Asian Paints. So, typically it tells you for every 1 rupee of earning profit company is making, how much is the market willing to pay. So for Asian Paints, for every 1 rupee of earning growth in the EPS, the market is willing to pay about 85 multiple. So it just tells you that two things it tells you. Once if you look at with ROE, typically companies with high ROEs will typically have high PE ratios because they are showing profitability, market likes it, and then they are accordingly valued. Also, the difference between PE and other return ratios is that every other ratio is on accounting variables will be your profit, but PE ratio covers the market price, the market variable. So the company has to be profitable, and then you have to add the angle in terms of how does the market value that profitability and solvency and liquidity for the organization, right? Mm-hmm. So PE ratio typically lower the better. A lower PE ratio might indicate that the stock is undervalued, but you have to be careful because it might be indicative of some other fundamental issues around the company. So there's no perfect level. We should typically compare PE ratios within a sector. Right? Don't compare an Asian Paints with Tata Steel. Won't give you a good picture at all. And it is not absolute. It is, again, as I said, it is relative to that question that if interest rates go down, obviously the P multiples will expand because your risk-free returns comes down.
Okay. Gurmeet, very quickly, this is a little out of syllabus. I got this query as I was walking into the studio, so we don't have it on the on our screen here. But Viram wanted to know, what if a company isn't profitable? There are no earnings. So then you can't apply this ratio. So very quickly, one line reply or a help if you can tell us.
Very good question, Surabhi. So businesses like telecom or let's say insurance takes time to get profitable, right? So there the price book ratio or the EV by EBITDA ratio is important. For simplicity, let's pick price to book value. Again, as it tells you how much the market is willing to pay you for every 1 rupee of book value of the company. So book value is available. It's nothing but the net worth of the company, the total assets on the balance sheet minus the external liabilities, right? So that's available on the balance sheet. So typically banks are valued at price to book value. It's a perfect measure for them. So for example, since we picked up HDFC Bank, HDFC Bank is valued at 4 times book value.
Correct.
Right? Similarly, a state-run bank like SBI is valued at 0.8 book value. So lower price book will indicate that it is undervalued. At the same time, it might also indicate that the business is not being properly run, and that's why the market is assigning a lower multiple. So valuation multiples like PE or PB have to be looked in correlation with the profitability and the leverage ratios which we discussed to arrive at a conclusion.
I think what you said is really important, and that's why we put the chart up, because that illustrates the point. You picked up 2 banks, HDFC Bank and SBI. SBI is, technically cheaper on a price to book basis, but the share price has its own mind and several other factors, which is why HDFC Bank, though it's of course more expensive in terms of price to book, it has done better in terms of shareholder returns or stock price returns. So, where to use which one really, or how to use both together? Very quickly, Gurmeet, price to earnings and price to book, if you could revise that for us.
So PE, as I said, is more relevant for companies which are already profitable, asset-light businesses. You can pick up FMCG, consumption, consumer durables, better ratio. PE is a better ratio. For businesses which have long gestation, where initially few years, you can't incur losses, a price book or a EV by EBITDA multiple is more relevant because it gives you an idea of how the overall book of the overall balance sheet is shaping up. So for example, since we covered EV by EBITDA, I don't want to confuse people. It tells you, so we saw Reliance getting 14 times EV EBITDA recently, right? When Reliance sold Reliance retail stake. EV by EBITDA, let's say for Reliance was 14. So it tells you that the guy who's buying the company, the earnings will take 14 years to return him the cost of acquisition.
Okay.
So my earnings will take, will take 14 years, assuming what the earnings are today, to return my cost of capital. So, for projects like telecom, long gestation projects, insurance, for example, uses embedded value instead of book value. Again, long gestation business takes time. For them, the ratios like price book and are better.
I think this will call for an advanced class. Now you're getting at the advanced level. We were at the beginner and the mid level. But interesting, those are the other ratios you can keep in mind. I mean, EV by EBITDA is definitely one of them. But for the purposes of this classroom, it's time for a revision now, Gurmeet. So we've done 7 ratios. Do quickly recap and tell us any clear rules to keep in mind when we're applying these ratios to evaluate companies and stocks.
Yeah, so I'll also pick up an example to make it clear. So you start with your profitability ratios like ROE, which is return on shareholder equity, ROC, which is return on capital employed. Ensure that there is not much divergence between ROE and ROCE, and return on assets. So you start with the profitability of the organization. Then you check whether the company is financially sound and stable. So in a stress situation like COVID, you will have to look at the balance sheet strength, ratios like debt equity, current ratio. So that is the company able to meet its obligations and may not become insolvent. Very important in stress conditions, right? And then you come to the valuation multiples, whether the profitability is is already priced in, or the market is probably expecting the growth to continue. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, Coal India. Consistently ROC is more than 20%, right? Last 10 years, if you see, it's more than 20%. Great dividend payout ratio. Everything is good. PE multiples are low. So theoretically, it's a great buy, Surbhi, right? But it's government stake there. Government for last 4 years is selling the stake. Coal is a dirty fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, coal is a dirty fuel. ESG business doesn't qualify, and suddenly the stock hasn't done well. So as I said, the ratios are very important, but analyze in relation to the growth of that sector and the company.
I think that sums it up really well. Ratios are your friends. They are tools, but they might not be the only thing that can help you arrive at that investment decision. That'll require certain other soft studies and soft skills as well. But for this class, thank you very much, Gurmeet, for joining us once again and taking all of those questions coming in from our viewers. And with that, we're completely out of time on this edition of Smart Money. Many thanks for joining in. Keep sending your questions, queries, and feedback, and we'll see you again next week.